Hi boys and girls, welcome to your second day using Seesaw. I am so proud to see how much work all of you had done yesterday. It looks like lots of you got on and got a lot of your work done and you didn't seem to have any trouble with it, so that's great. I'm glad to see we're off to a good start. So today I'll be reading the next chapter in the BFG. The title of this chapter is called A Trogglehumper for the Flesh Lump Eater. And remember, yesterday we had learned that a trogglehumper is a nightmare and the flesh lump eater is the name of one of the giants. This is actually a very long chapter, so I'll just be reading the first half today, and then I'll read the second half tomorrow. All right, so when we had left off, the BFG and Sophie were leaving Dream Country, and they were heading back to Giant Country because the BFG had collected a really nice dream, but he had also collected a nightmare also. So he's bringing them back with him. They is always having about 50 winks before they go scampering off to hunt human beings in the evening, the BFG said. He stopped for a few moments to let Sophie have a better look. Giants is only sleeping every then and now, he said. Not nearly as much as human beings. Human beings is crazy for sleeping. Is it ever occurring to you that a human being who is 50 is spending about 20 years sleeping fast? I must admit that never occurred to me, Sophie said. You should allow it to occur to you, the BFG said. Imagine it, please. This human being who says he is 50 has been fast asleep for 20 years and not even knowing where he is, not even doing anything, not even thinking. It is a funny thought, Sophie said. Exactly, the BFG said. So what I is trying to explain to you is that a human being who says he is 50 is not 50. He is only 30. What about me, Sophie said. I am 8. You is not 8 at all, the BFG said. Human being babies and little childers is spending half their time sleeping. So you is only 4. I'm 8, Sophie said. You may think you is 8, the BFG said, but you has only spent 4 years of your life with your little eyes open. You is only 4, and please stop higgling me. Titchy little snapper whippers like you should not be higgling around with an old sage and onions who is hundreds of years more than you. How much do giants sleep? Sophie asked. They is never wasting time snozzling, the BFG said. 2 or 3 hours is enough. When do you sleep? Sophie asked. Even less, the BFG said. I is sleeping only once in a baby baboon. So I think he means like only once in a blue moon, which means not very often. Sophie, peeping out from her pocket, examined the 9 sleeping giants. Remember, they haven't quite gotten back to the cave yet. They're kind of just approaching the area. Okay. They looked even more grotesque now than when they were awake. Sprawled out across the yellow plain, they covered an area about the size of a football field. Most of them were lying on their backs with their enormous mouths wide open, and they were snoring like foghorns. The noise was awful. Suddenly, the BFG gave a jump in the air. By gum frog, he cried, I is just having the most wopsy whiffling idea. What? Sophie said. Wait, he cried. Hold your horse feathers. Keep your skirt on. Just wait to see what I is going to bring about. He galloped off fast to his cave with Sophie hanging on tight to the rim of his pocket. He rolled back the stone. He entered the cave. He was very excited. He was moving quickly. You stay where you is in my pocket, Huggy Bee, he said. We is doing this lovely bit of muck swashing both together. He laid aside the dream-catching net, but hung on to the suitcase. He ran across to the other side of the cave and grabbed the long trumpet thing, the one he had been carrying when Sophie had first seen him in the village. With the suitcase in one hand and the trumpet in the other, he dashed out of the cave. What is he up to now? Sophie wondered. So maybe make a prediction. Think about what the BFG might be up to. He got an idea seeing the giants. He ran off to grab his trumpet, and he also has his suitcase, which has that nightmare in it. So think about what he might be doing with that. Peep your head up good, the BFG said. Then you will get a fine winkle of what is going on. When the BFG came near to the sleeping giants, he slowed his pace. He began moving softly. He crept on his toes toward the ugly brutes. They were still snoring loudly. They looked repulsive, filthy, diabolical. The BFG tiptoed around them. He went past the gizzard gulper, the blood bottler, the meat dripper, the child chewer. Then he stopped. He had reached the flesh lump eater. He pointed at him. Then he looked down at Sophie and gave her a big wink. He knelt on the ground and very quietly he opened the suitcase. He took out of it the glass jar containing the terrible, nightmarish Trogglehumper. Uh-oh, what do you think he's going to do with that? At that point, Sophie guessed what was going to happen next. Ouch, she thought. This could be rather dangerous. She crouched lower in the pocket so that only the top of her head and her eyes were showing. She wanted to be ready to duck out of sight very fast should anything go wrong. They were about 10 feet away from the flesh lump eater's face. The snoring, snorting noise he was making was disgusting. Every now and again, a big bubble of spit formed between his two open lips, and then it would burst with a splash and cover his face with saliva. Taking infinite care, the BFG unscrewed the top of the glass jar and tipped the squiggling, swarming, faintly scarlet Trogglehumper into the wide end of his long trumpet. He put the other end of the trumpet to his lips. He aimed the trumpet directly at the flesh lump eater's face. He took a deep breath, puffed out his cheeks, and then, woof, he blew. I'll show you the picture. So here is the BFG with his long trumpet sort of thing here, blowing that nightmare onto the flesh lump eater. Oh boy. And remember, Sophie's in his pocket too. Sophie saw a flash of pale red go darting toward the giant's face. For a split second, it hovered above the face. Then it was gone. It seemed to have been sucked up the giant's nose, but it had all happened so quickly, Sophie couldn't be sure. We had better be skittling away quick to where it is safe, the BFG whispered. He trotted off for about 100 yards, then he stopped. He crouched low to the earth. Now, he said, we is waiting for the gun in flames to begin. They didn't have long to wait. The air was suddenly pierced by the most fearful roar Sophie had ever heard. And she saw the flesh lump eater's body, all 54 feet of it, rise up off the ground and fall back again with a thump. So the huge giant is this nightmare starting for him. Then it began to wriggle and twist and bounce about in the most violent fashion. It was quite frightening to watch. Yow! Roared the flesh lump eater. Aye! Ow! He's still asleep, the BFG whispered. The terrible troggle-humping nightmare is beginning to hit him. Serves him right, Sophie said. She could feel no sympathy for this great brute who ate children as though they were sugar lumps. Save us, screamed the flesh lump eater, thrashing about madly. He's after me. He's getting me. So that's the nightmare that he's having. The thrashing of limbs and the waving of arms became more violent by the second. It was an awesome thing to watch, such a massive creature having such mighty convulsions. All right, so we're going to stop here. Remember, I said this is a long chapter. I do have one more picture I can show you, though. I'm going to fold the book back so you don't see the next one. And there is the flesh lump eater, and the nightmare is starting for him. So he's waving, thrashing all around, yelling. So he's having that really bad dream. And the BFG and Sophie, I think, are kind of actually excited to see this. So we will finish this chapter tomorrow, and we'll see what ends up happening with the flesh lump eater and his nightmare. All right, bye.